Take 367.
Buckle up. You are listening to Musicians and Beyond with Lawhorn and Sarabian, our special multi-part series, Under the Covers with Ernie Cefalu. And we're really looking forward to talking to Ernie and find out what's going on in his career. What? Mark, what is that?
Oh,
Mark,
well, just wait.
You and Ernie have something to do with this, don't you?
Well, not so much.
Mark.
But maybe.
That's it. You know.
Yeah, well, here we go. So those of you that are home right now, John didn't want to hear this because he might not like where it's going, but we are interrupting our normal broadcast of Under the Covers with Ernie Cefalu, and we are going to break from our path of scheduled shows. This would normally be the start of part 3, but instead we're going to go with Ernie Cefalu is going to be joined in the studio by a gentleman named Ivor Levene. And if you don't know Ivor, you're going to learn about him. He is going to bring a different take to our Under the Cover series. Let's get John back in here. John, come back in. We'll clean up the papers when you get over this, but I think you're going to be happy to hear Ivor Levene from Goldmine Magazine, probably the world's #1 music collectible publication.
Wait a second. Ivor Levene?
Ivor Levene.
The writer?
The assistant editor, columnist, writer, music historian from Goldmine Magazine.
Okay, so him with Ernie Cefalu.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Together in the studio.
What? Why don't we check out what they have to say?
Well, I think you're going to like it because for those that are at home that don't know about Goldmine Magazine, Goldmine Magazine's #1 publication in music collectibles. They've just released a 20-page series, probably their biggest layout ever for any story they've done. So listen in.
Cool. Let's check it out. I love Goldmine Magazine. I love Goldmine. It's a great magazine.
I bought things from them. How about you?
Me too.
Yeah.
I love them. Let's check it out.
Blew yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, Ivor, this is John.
Hi,
John,
Ivor.
that's Ivor. And John's partner Mark couldn't make it, but John, Ivor, this whole thing with Goldmine is his baby. I mean, from the writing to pitching it, I had nothing to do with any of that. So I want to just sort of talk a little bit about stuff. And I'm sure Ivor has some things to say.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are. And if you have any questions, certainly feel free to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we want to do is make it a win-win-win situation. I mean, we'll get, Goldmine Magazine out there to our listeners. We'll get Pacific Eye and Air, and you guys do the same.
That way. Ivor and I, met about 6 years ago at the at the Forest Lawn Museum show, and he was doing an article for LA Beat magazine, and we became friends. We bonded right away, and I had no idea that he was doing this. Not really. I mean, we had talked about doing a book after we met, and he did the interview for Goldmine, for LA Beat. We talked about doing a book, and Bob Inglesiepen and I had already started doing the graphics on it, and we didn't do any of the writing. So Ivor's, the whole thing worked out where he was going to do all the writing for the book, and he started interviewing, rock stars, started interviewing managers and producers like Bob Ezrin, and that's been going on for what, Ivor, about 5 years now?
6, 7 years. I don't know. I lost track of
So
time, man.
So Ivor, this is a proud moment for you then. 7 years in the making, and then it's out there now. I bought one. I hope it was one of the first ones, because every day I would go on a couple of times because I wanted to get #1. I actually emailed your people at Goldmine, and they got back to whatever. But I said, I'd love to get a low number. And they said, try back in a couple of days, try back in a couple of days. So I tried back and finally got through and placed the order. And
Yeah.
hopefully I was one of your first customers, but I'm excited to get it.
He wrote
Yeah,
a great article. It's really good.
I'm lucky. I've got probably the best editor in the business, Pat Prince. He takes what essentially is just a bunch of words on a page and makes art out of it. And it's really smart the way he's marketed this, because originally I thought, you would just get a random copy. Like if you ordered it online, you had no control over what print you were going to get. And he took it and made it so you could specify the exact print you wanted, which is cool. So we can see, who's selling out.
Yeah,
We
that
can
is
see
great.
the Rolling Stones and Aerosmith gone.
Yeah. Well, he's been really, really open. I mean, I think I had mentioned to you and Mark that Ivor had gone through, and I secondarily, but mainly him, went through some real gyrations getting this thing to print. I mean, because there was a lot of issues about, whether we were talking bad about Craig Braun and using his magazine as a platform to get back at him. And the thing that I love about the article, forget about it's me. Okay. When I read it, it was, yeah, it's me, but the way he surprised me and the way he put it together leaves it open to the viewer or the reader to make their own decision. It isn't like, well, this guy, when I would talk about it, it was me. When Craig Braun talked about it, it was him, and John Pache, it's him, and Mick Jagger. But nobody ever really put all those comments and all those directions in one article, in one place. And the way he did it was really, really strategic and clever, because he left it up to the reader. He didn't draw one thing or another. And it's really only a small part of the 20-page article. It's only about the Rolling Stones thing. All the other stuff, it goes unchallenged. We did it. We had at one point, his editor felt that nobody could have done that many album covers. He wanted a discography. So we came into, and, there's no way he was going to do this because nobody could have done that. Not one person. Right, Ivor? I mean, I don't want to take word. Why don't you tell him? Because it happened to you.
No, well, that's essentially what did happen. Like, as we started getting into this and we were in the proofreading stages, my editor said, I got to verify this. There's no way anybody could have done more than 200 album covers, which is funny, because the Grammys, I just learned on the weekend, are giving another friend of mine a Lifetime Achievement Grammy, Henry Diltz, for having done over 200 albums.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and he was the guy that mainly did Woodstock. If you're not familiar with Henry Diltz, I mean, he's done a lot of live stuff, outdoor, and not. I remember, I was telling Ivor, I remember him or his agent reaching out to us at Pacific Pioneer, but we didn't really do a lot of that kind of photography. Our photography was more studio photography, tabletop, or a group in the studio in a situation. We didn't really do a whole lot of stuff, but I remember his name from back in the day in the 70s. I mean, he was really, he was right there with all the bands, especially the Doors. I mean, he was very close with them. And,
Still is, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, the gyrations that Ivor and I went through to get this thing to print were pretty amazing. And I mean, I got to really hand it to him. He did a great job. I mean, I was when I read it the first time, I laughed, I cried, I mean, it was all those emotions, and then realizing that it's about me is very humbling. It really is. I mean, I never really thought about it the way he saw it, I mean, and when we started talking about doing the book, he started interviewing all these different acts and people. And so, we planned to use it for the book, and I'm sure, Ivor, you didn't use all of it, but you used some choice pieces, and really sort of gives a lot of validation to what he wrote, and it's 20 pages. It's a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know how the hell, and the way he ended it, I'm not going to ruin the ending for you, John, but the way he ended it, it was perfect. I couldn't have done it better. It was as perfect as you and Mark coming up with Under the Covers. I mean, because we were talking, Ivor, about a name for this episodic thing we're going to do, and I was thinking Between the Covers, kind of like what we were doing with the book. And when they said Under the Covers, it was like, wow, that's great. It's kind of it's almost like a National Enquirer. You know, you're going to learn the dirt. You know, and there really isn't any dirt, but you know, I mean, it was just great because it's under the covers. It's the under backstory that you and I, Ivor, have been, you know, championing for quite a while now. You know.
Yeah, it's a great story, and it's just, you know, it needed to be told. And anybody that had that kind of information that didn't tell the story, in my mind, would just be criminal, just to not tell the story. You know, Ernie's got the info, I have the info. There's going to be a book, there's going to be a documentary. This is just the first step.
Yeah, and we want to leverage the equity that we get. You know, the episode things that we're going to do with Musicians and Beyond, the Ernie's Corner that I do every Saturday. All those things are kind of linking together to promote the book and then the documentary. I mean, it may just stop at the book. I don't know. I mean,
Nah,
there's plenty of stories, you know, and a documentary would be cool. We haven't committed to anybody yet, you know, but I know one thing. I know that whatever I do, Ivor's going to do with me, because he's, you know, I mean, nobody understands it. Nobody ever understood it the way he did it. I mean, I was totally not expecting the way you wrote that. And he wouldn't share it with me. He sent me this file that was so small that when I blew it up, it was like, looked like bird crap everywhere, you know, all the little flea shit, you know, and I couldn't read it. And you know, he wouldn't send it to me because he said, I want you to read it, you know, in the magazine. I want to be there when you read it. And when I honestly, Ivor, and I don't think I ever told you this, I never expected it to be the way you wrote it. Never. It was so, because I was concerned. I was thinking, well, what if this guy gets uptight, or what if those people get up? You didn't do any of that. You left it totally open. And the other thing that he's really good at, John, is doing the due diligence, to have the evidence. You know, he'd make a great attorney. You know, he's got all the evidence. No. I mean, when I said something about this, he go, oh no, look, I've got this, and he shared with me. He's got this email from like 5 years ago, and this guy said that, and you know, and he so he can back up. And I'm sure you had to do that with your editor. Pretty much everything that he's saying. I mean, you know, let's think about it. Here's a national magazine with a huge following and a readership. You can't make mistakes. You can't just go fly off the handle, because especially, I mean, I've seen it going on to some of these Stones blog sites and other rock band sites, and there are hardcore fans, man, that challenge everything, you know? And so for Goldmine to really put their neck on the chopping block, so to speak, it's a big thing for them too. And Ivor, I don't know whether you've seen there, I've had a half a dozen comments on how great it is that they put a graphic on the front cover. You know, I mean, there were half a dozen of people saying, "Oh, this is really great. What a change!" And so people understand it, people realize it, you know, and that's nice. That's nice when that happens.
Well, that was all you. I mean, you know, we sort of discussed it, but it was really, you know.
Well, you gave me a lot of, come on, you gave me a lot of, how many different layouts did we do for that front cover? There must have been 15. I do one, and he go, no, change this, no, you know, put this guy, take Tony Orlando out and put this guy in. And, you know, I mean, there's plenty of room to, and I guess that's one of the nice things about what we've got, is we've got a lot of variety. So we're not really stuck with, you know, we're not a one-trick pony. We've got, you know, 3 things that everybody knows, and the rest nobody knows and nobody cares. And, you know, thank God for a guy like Ivor that put it into words where everybody can understand it, even me.
I don't know. We told the story of 6 albums. There's, you know, 240 something to go. Yeah. There's a lot of stories there. Yeah. In my mind, this is going to be a recurring piece in Goldmine. It'll be almost a column. And I've seen a lot of lesser documentaries. Right, we could make something really good out of this. Yeah, I know we could. Right.
Yeah, and you know,
there's a lot of garbage. There's tons of garbage out there. Music-related documentaries. There's some really good ones, and this could be one of those.
I think for a documentary, talking about a documentary, it'd be a lot like what happened with Goldmine. Goldmine never did anything like this before. There's really never been a documentary about album cover design, and these people that were doing all this rock and roll stuff were also doing work for Nestle and Kraft and Coca-Cola. I think that there's a story that we can tell that none of the other people that have album cover art books, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ivor, but I don't think there's anybody out there that's done a book where they show both.
No.
Yeah, we did the album covers, but look what we did for Coca-Cola. Look what you did for Nestle for 30 years. Look at all this other cool stuff that without Alice Cooper, without some of the, without the Rolling Stones, without Jesus Christ Superstar, we would have just been another company. But we were smart enough to leverage the equity that we had in what we had done, you know, and had people like Shep Gordon and Alice and Bob Ezrin and people like that really, Black Oak, Arkansas, Butch Stone, they just kept pushing us out there, kept giving us work because they believed in us. And that's, you know, I love Ivor for that. He believes in me more than I believe in myself. And that's a true statement. You know, I mean, he understands like nobody else has ever understood. And I've spent a lot of time telling people, but nobody understands it the way he does. And I'm 77. There have been very few times that I can think of that were as powerful as this. The Smithsonian show was a good one, but you know, that was to a music fan audience and there was a lot of spillover. It's like running an ad. You're appealing to a very small percentage of the people that are getting that publication. You know, when we do things like this, Goldmine Magazine is 100% of the target audience. You know, musicians and beyond, 100% of the target audience. Joyce Conway, you know, because she's great. I don't know whether you watch Saturday Block Party, but she has a ability to educate. Everything she talks about on her show, every piece of music she plays, she knows the history. She knows the players. She knows where they went after they left that group. I mean, and Ivor, you've kind of done that too. You have that, and John, I think your love for music, you and Mark, you guys understand that, and that's why you're so important. You know, people like you and Ivor and Joyce, you're making it very possible. You're taking what's old and making it new again. You guys are doing it. I'm helping, but you guys have the reach. Taking what's old and making it new again. And that's the beautiful thing about what we've done, what I've done. It's always going to be new again to the next generation that discovers it. So, you know, that's the beautiful thing about music.
Well, that's why I think it's important too that you guys somehow get this documentary done, because people 200 years from now have to know this.
Yeah.
It can't get lost. It's like,
No,
it's important.
exactly.
You know, there was what I call the golden age of custom album packaging, interactive packaging, where it does more than just take the record out of the sleeve and put it on a player. There's a whole experience that comes with that music that helps further the music. And I've always looked at it that way. And I call it the golden age of custom album packaging. That lasted about 14 years. And it's still, I mean, I see what people post on Facebook for different acts like Alice Cooper, Burton Cummings. It's always a lot of the stuff that we did, you know, because the newer stuff, maybe the music isn't as good, you know, or the packaging isn't as good, or it isn't as clever, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, people love nostalgia, and it's really true. It's really true. And especially if there's something that's exciting, because not only is it nostalgia for us, but there's music attached to it, you know, famous music, famous musicians, you know, and the packaging reflects that and leverages that equity. So, you know, I mean, I think that's, you know, a thing that, you know, we're all doing. And look, Ivor put up the covers. Yeah, John, there's the one cover that you see on the left there, is the slipcase cover. And it's got what, Ivor, 15 different images on it?
Yeah, 1, 2, 4 by 16, I think.
Yeah, because there's
20.
one in each corner. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's really it's, again, they've never done, Goldmine has never done anything like this. You know, and for me, that's a real plus, because it makes a difference. It stands out. And, you know, hopefully the editor will be so excited he'll want to do a follow-up. I know Ivor's ready. I'm ready. We got plenty of content. You know, that's not the problem.
Nope.
Yeah. But, you know, it's a really exciting last few weeks. I made a bunch of foo bars that Ivor had to correct me on, you know, because I get too anxious. I put the marketing hat on, and sometimes it's the wrong time to put the marketing hat on, you know, but I think we got through it well. And, you know, with his guidance, you know, I think it's going to do really, really well. I think it's just now starting. and it's exciting. And doing this show, with you, John, is really going to help further that. So,
Oh,
you know,
I'm
great.
excited, and I'm actually honored that I'm a little piece of this puzzle.
Yeah. Well, you're a big piece. You're a big piece. Ivor's a huge piece.
I'm just a little guy. You guys are.
No, I mean, it's you in back to the timing thing. I mean, it all, you came along at the right time. It wasn't too early and it wasn't too late. It's like the Three Bears, man. This one's just right. And Musicians and Beyond is there just at the right time. And I think that I think it's gonna, like I said, I think it's gonna help all of us. So
It's amazing how these things work out. When I met Ernie, I had only written 2 things, I think. I was like, no background, nothing.
Yeah.
And yeah, it led to a lot of stuff. So without Ernie, I probably wouldn't be a Goldmine.
well, without Ivor, I wouldn't have gotten Goldmine, and a lot of the other, I wouldn't have gotten LA Beat. I mean, those magazines really help. Those, when you Google my name, that LA Beat's right there. I mean, it's a, and the article's really good. I mean, and like I said, that kind of got us started in a friendship that's really become very, very strong. And she's like my brother, man. I mean, the guy really understands. Nobody's ever, a little paranoid, but he gets it. But only paranoid because I'm not. It's like Bonnie. She balances me out, man. Otherwise, I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for her, I'd be living in a cardboard box somewhere in an alley, with nothing. She's really, you need those kind of people in your life. Ivor's one of those kind of people in my life. And John, you and Mark have become that, and so is Joyce with Saturday Block Party. It's really great. I mean, I'm very excited about all this, and I hope that the viewers really enjoy it as well. I know I did. Now I'll keep on reading it over and over again because it's really great. I'll be able to recite it back to you verbatim, pretty soon here. But Bonnie goes, "Are you reading that story about you again?" Yeah, I think it's one of the best things you've ever written that I've read. Not because it's about me, because it's really well written and it's captivating. And John, I think when you get your copy, you'll agree. I mean, it for a 20-page article, it flows really well. And the Rolling Stones thing, which is kind of the major, I guess, focus on the debate here of who did what, is only a very small part of it. And Ivor pointed that out to me not long ago, that, hey man, that's, it's only one little piece of a bigger story, and he's right. I mean, it's a big story, and I've never had a story that big before. And like I said, in one place, with the first part of it being, not drawing any conclusions or pointing any fingers, it leaves it up to you, which I think is a real art all into itself.
Yeah, well, that's all I ever aim for, is to inform, to maybe get a little humor in there, tell a story. And
Yeah,
I mean, I agree. I think it is the best thing I've ever written, and not just because I wrote it. It's just it's a very compelling story.
Yeah.
So it's not me. It's the story.
Yeah,
It's
but
the
you
story
told
that's
it in a
compelling.
compelling way and an informative way, and not picking sides.
Really, there's no sides to take.
Yeah.
This is how it happened, and there were a lot of people involved.
But the other thing is that what I was saying about all of it in one place, when you read about it, usually it's one person's opinion, and they're drawing a conclusion. They're pointing a finger, and that's always how it's been. Because this guy will say something over here, and that guy says something over there, and I'll say something over here, and we're all trying to make, win over the reader.
Listen, when you've got Shep Gordon and Alice Cooper speaking for you, you don't need to speak. I didn't need to say anything. They said it.
Yeah, and he kept telling me, John, when this thing drops, there's not going to be any question about anything, anymore, and he's right. I mean, I love the fact that you leave it up to the reader, but, you did it. You did a great job. So,
Well, thanks.
I could see somebody at Rolling Stone magazine reading this and going, hey man, this guy Ivor, he's a really good writer. We should have him write something for us.
Or I would tell them no.
Another magazine. It doesn't have to be Rolling Stone. It could be some other magazine that is you know, there are plenty of them all out there, and your publisher owns most of them. Your
Well, you
publisher
know what?
at Goldmine, he owns Goldmine and about 30 other music magazines.
Rolling Stone had their chance. I will never write for Rolling Stone.
No,
I
really?
will- Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. If they called me and offered me a ton of money today, I would say no.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, I'm a big believer in loyalty, and I am a writer for Goldmine, and I will always only be a writer for Goldmine.
Yeah. Do we know if the other issues, the other different ones are selling too? I imagine they are, right? I mean,
Yeah,
if Rolling Stone and Aerosmith is sold out, and there's only 20 of each, right?
hmm
And then there's 200 of the slipcase covers. So,
yeah,
you know, and that one's doing really well too. So, you know, hopefully, you know, in a week or two, they'll be excited and want to do more or whatever. They
yeah.
cut his article down too. How much did they cut down of it, Ivor?
Oh, I don't know. I think it was 13,000 words, and they cut it down to like 4, something like that.
Really? And that's another thing that we can boast. You know, you got the magazine, but you didn't get the whole story.
Yeah.
Okay.